Sangasteshu Pajayate.
Samgat Sanjayate Kama.
Sangat Sanjayate Kama.
Kama Kodo Vijayate.
Kama Krodho Vijayate. Jayato Vishayam Pumsa.
Jayato Vishayam Pumsa.
Sangasteshu Pajayate.
Sangasteshu Pajayate.
Sangat Sanjayate Kama.
Sangat Sanjayate Kama.
Kama Krodho Vijayate.
Kama Kodo
Jayato Vishayam Pumsa.
Jayato
Sangasteshu Pajayate.
Sangasteshu Pajayate.
Sangat Sanjayate Kama.
Sangat Sanjayate Kama.
Kama Krodho Vijayate.
Kama Kodo Vijayate.
Jayato Vishayam Pumsa.
Jayato Vishayam Pumsa.
Sangasteshu Pajayate.
Sangasteshu Pajayate.
Sangat Sanjayate Kama.
Kama Krodho Vijayate.
Jayato Vishayam Pumsa. Sangasteshu Pajayate. Sangat Sanjayate Kama. Kamat Krodho Vijayate.
Jayato Vishayam Pumsa.
Jayato Vishayam Pumsa.
Sangasteshu Pajayate.
Sangasteshu Pajayate.
Sangat Sanjayate Kama.
Sangat Sanjayate Kama.
Kamat Krodho Vijayate.
Kamat Krodho Vijayate.
Monique, Dominic asking if it's recording.
Yes, it is recording now. I believe so. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Would anyone else? Yes. Jayato Vishayam Pumsa.
Sangasteshu Pajayate.
Sangasteshu Pajayate.
Sangat Sanjayate Kama.
Sangat Sanjayate Kama.
Kama Krodho Vijayate.
Kama Krodho Vijayate.
Jayato Vishayam Pumsa.
Jayato Vishayam Pumsa.
Sangasteshu Pajayate.
Sangasteshu Pajayate.
Sangat Sanjayate Kama.
Sangat Sanjayate Kama.
Kama Krodho Vijayate.
Kama Krodho Vijayate. So I'll now go through the word for word. We can do that responsively. Jayata. While contemplating. Vishayan. Sense objects. Pumsa. Of the person. Sangha. Attachment. Teshu. In the sense objects. Upajayate. Develops. Sangat. Attachment. Sanjayate. Develops. Kama. Desire. Kamat. From desire. Krodha. Anger. Abhijayate. Becomes manifest. Translation. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them. And from such attachment, lust develops, and from lust, anger arises. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada.
Die.
One who is not Krishna conscious is subjected to material desires while contemplating the objects of senses. The senses require real engagements, and if they are not engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, they will certainly seek engagement in the service of materialism. In the material world, everyone, including Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to say nothing of other demigods in the heavenly planets, is subjected to the influence of sense objects, and the only method to get out of this puzzle of material existence is to become Krishna conscious. Lord Shiva was deep in meditation, but when Parvati agitated him for sense pleasure, he agreed to the proposal, and as a result, Kartikeya was born. When Haridas Thakur was a young devotee of the Lord, he was similarly allured by the incarnation of Mayadevi. But Haridas easily passed the test because of his unalloyed devotion to Lord Krishna. As illustrated in the above-mentioned verse of Sri Yamunacharya, a sincere devotee of the Lord shuns all material sense enjoyment due to his higher taste for spiritual enjoyment in the association of the Lord. That is the secret of success. One who is not therefore in Krishna consciousness, however powerful he may be in controlling the senses by artificial repression, is sure ultimately to fail, for the slightest thought of sense pleasure will agitate him to gratify his desires. Hare Krishna. We're studying Bhagavad-gita, chapter 2, text 62. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshura Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayamukadamayam Dadati Svakarantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Gutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaraganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadekam Savadutam Parijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishkanvitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Tapta Kancana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Panchakalpa Tuyudashka Dripa Sindhu Yevacha Atitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Rasa Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanami Namaste Saraswati Devi Vishesha Shunyavadi Paschacha Desha Harini Jayato Vishayan Pumsa Sangasteshu Pajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kamat Krodo Vijayate. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them, and from such attachment lust develops, and from lust anger arises. Hare Krishna. So I have several degrees in, from academia in the social and mental health sciences. And I will say that this verse contains more knowledge about psychology than I got in all of my academic courses in the university. I stand by that statement. Yes. So this describes spiritual psychology, describes about roots of anger, the root of anger. It is said about modern trends in psychology that first psychology lost its conscience, and then psychology lost its soul, and now it has lost its mind altogether. So, yes, if we look at trends, because the idea, if we look at like behaviorism, the idea is that there's not just there's no such thing as consciousness or soul or conscience, but then actually the whole concept of mind is like everything is reduced to the brain. This is an assumption. There's no evidence for that. But the evidence is the opposite. I know you have a mind, you know I have a mind. We can't see it with material eyes, but so they're taking anything subtle out of, trying to take anything subtle out of the equation, leading to a hollow sort of behavioralism. So here it's a spiritual psychology. A few verses ago, it's described Vishayan, Vishaya Vinivartante, Niraharasya Dehinam, Sarvajam Sodhyasa, Paramajista Nivartate. That in order to give up being a slave to the lower self requires that the soul gets a higher taste. And this verse is actually the first of two verses that describe, let's call it a downward spiral, an 8-part downward spiral. And this describes the first 4 parts of the 8-part downward spiral. So we start by contemplating the objects of the senses, and then we become attached. We become attached. And then from attachment we become lusty. We might say lust is the opposite of empathy. Lust means it's like, I have to have that. I don't want that. I have to have that. Okay. We might not show our lust in such overt, gross forms, which means like, I don't care what others feel or the bigger picture. But when we're under the control of lusty desire, now it can be lusty the desire for, let's call it gross sense gratification, or it can be desire for subtle sense gratification. That's desires for example, I must be recognized. I must be recognized. I must be adored. I must get this profit, name and fame. Yes. Okay. So these are gross and subtle sense desires. Arjuna asks in the 3rd chapter, but so the 2nd chapter is a summary. So all these topics of the 2nd chapter, they're expanded upon as Bhagavad-gita goes on in the next 15 and 16 chapters. So Arjuna asks, why do we do things we don't want to do? And okay. Let's see here.
Should I read?
He said the audio is choppy. So we could plug in the Ethernet cord.
Okay, I'm gonna test maybe which to.
Okay. There's the yellow cord if you think that will help.
Okay. Okay, let's plug the Ethernet.
Okay. All right. Hopefully this will help. Okay. How are we doing? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna. So are you hearing me? Okay. So
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. So Krishna responds, Kama Esha Krodha Esha Rajaguna Samudbhava Mahashvano Mahapatma Vijayamiham. Very So Krishna says, we do things that we don't want to do. We do things that are not in our best interest because of kama, because of lust. And then that whole section concludes, Krishna describes, Etambude prambudvasam sabjatmanvamana jahi shatrun mahabaho kamulandrasam. The Krishna encourages us control the lower self with the higher self by spiritual intelligence. And in this way, we can conquer the insatiable enemy known as lust. Okay? So you might say spiritual intelligence. What's spiritual intelligence? Spiritual intelligence, that's this. That's this. Oh, really? That's it. So it doesn't mean, well, you just follow some book. It's not, it means like we have the intelligent, spiritual intelligence. Means we have the sincerity and the intelligence to know where to go for higher guidance. Okay. And then we can reverse the cycle. This verse that we just read today, this describes a downward cycle. So it requires sincerity and intelligence. Krishna says in Bhagavad-gita, Tesham satatta yuktanam bhajatam prativarvakam tadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamu priyanti te. He says, to one who's sincere, I'll give the intelligence by which you can come to me. So our job is to be sincere. That I really want to reverse this cycle. I really want to reverse this cycle. And create an upward spiritual spiral, which is just like in any field of endeavor, it requires intelligence to know where to go to get higher guidance. Like again, if we want to get a degree in physics, we don't need to be expert in the nuances of quantum physics to go and get a degree in physics. We do need to be sincere enough and intelligent enough to know the difference between here's a bona fide university program and here's this is just some bogus guy on the street who wants to take $80,000 and give me and write a certificate. You're a doctor of physics. We need to have some intelligence to know where to go. Let's say if I want to buy gold. Okay. Well, to buy gold, I need to be that was not what I was going to say. Ramachandra had a comment there. So I need to be a Goldstein. Yes, okay. So if I want to buy gold, I don't need to be a master in gemology or geology. I don't need to be a master. I do need to know essentially like, yes, okay, here's an authorized place that sells precious metals. Okay, and this is I'm not going to go to the supermarket. I'm not going to go to the Toyota dealership and say, look, I got $80,000. Will you give me gold? I need to have enough intelligence to know where to go for higher spiritual intelligence. Okay. And so this describes a downward cycle, starting with contemplating the objects of the senses. And Prabhupada makes the point that he says, if you don't have a high taste of Krishna consciousness, which primarily, but in a foundational way, it comes from Krishna, so that so we chant the names of Krishna, and we get this is shelter to protect us from this downward spiral. It's the shelter. It's the main shelter.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear group.
Yeah.
We're nice.
Sound.
Probably many people love the song.
Uh-huh.
If everyone can turn their video, that will help probably.
I see. So the sound's not working so well. Okay.
Maybe
check.
No, something.
Can you say something, Priya? Because I think I hear you well.
Hare Krishna. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you very well. So maybe it's not the number of the people, but something with the mic. Yeah.
It's not the mic, it's the internet connection. How many people are there?
Well, Braille sounds good to me, so.
Okay. All right. It sounds better now. Can you go back to this? Thank you.
What's going on?
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know what's going on here.
Okay. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna.
Where are we?
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare.
Oh, okay, we're back.
Okay. So. I see. Yes. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Mm-hmm. Could be. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Are you hearing me?
So
Yes.
Yes.
Good. All right. Okay. So we can say that the essence of this process of Krishna consciousness, the process given by Bhagavad-gita, it's about transforming the quality of our desire. It's about transforming the quality of our desire. So it's an important principle, very important, because many attempts at spiritual life, the idea is to negate or eliminate desire, because there's realization of this downward spiral. While contemplating the objects of the senses, we become attached, and then that results in frustration and results in all sorts of mess, angry, violent, depression, messes like that. So the idea is, it's desire that gets us into trouble. So let's eliminate all desire. So that can sound good. The problem with that is it's impossible. The nature of the soul is to desire. Then there's just going to be like the waves in the ocean, one after the other. So that's an ontological context. That's the reality. That's the reality. So it's described in the Bhagavatam. Ene ravindaksha vimuktimaninas tvayastabhavavishuddha udaya aruya kritrena parampadam tata patantya do nadrita yushmadangraya. It describes that even if one has achieved Brahman realization, meaning freedom from material desire, if one has not developed the eagerness, the desire to serve Krishna, then one's intelligence is still impure, and that impure intelligence will bring one back down to the material realm. So this is not a process of elimination, it's a process of transforming the quality of our desire from desiring materially to desiring spiritually. Desiring spiritually means desiring to serve Krishna and his pure devotee representative. it's described. Smartavya satatam Vishno vismartavya na jatuchit, which means all the rules and regulations, the essential principle of all the rules and regulations is always remember God, never forget God. More personally, always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam. And that's what Prabhupada would often say. Utility is the principle. So to accept anything favorable for progressing in Krishna consciousness and to reject anything that's not favorable. This is the essential principle of utilization. Prabhupada gives the example here of Haridas Thakur. He compares him favorably to examples of like Lord Shiva or Vishwamitra Muni. Prabhupada quotes Sri Yamunacharya. Yadavadi Mama Cheta Krishna Bhatarabinde Nava Nava Rasadam Yudato Indumasa Tadavadi Badanari Sangami Smaramani Bhavati Mukhavichara Shustuni Stimban Vanamcha Bhavati. So Yamunacharya prays, he says, ever since my mind has been engaged in the transcendental loving service of the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, realizing ever new pleasure in him. Whenever I think of sex pleasure, I spit at the thought and my lip curls with disgust. The idea is he's getting such a higher taste from serving Krishna that the lower taste goes away without trying to force the will. The ideal example, which we're not encouraged to imitate, but to be inspired by, is Haridas Thakur. Well, Haridas Thakur, actually, there are two pastimes like this. One is by Maya Devi herself, and the other is by a prostitute sent by the mayor of the town. That Haridas Thakur, he lived incredibly simply. He lived in a cave and simply chanted Hare Krishna purely and served Tulasi Devi. That's a pure devotee of Krishna in the form of a plant. Tulasi Devi, Tulasi Krishna Prayasi Namo Nama Hare Krishna. And so the townsfolk, they so much admired and appreciated Srila Haridas Thakur. He was such a gentle soul, and just by his presence and his pure chanting, he purified the whole universe, really. And so the mayor of the town, Ramachandra Khan, he was very envious of Haridas Thakur. And he wanted to defame him. He wanted to bring him down. He couldn't stand that Haridas Thakur was getting more admiration and appreciation than himself. And so he arranged for a young, beautiful prostitute to go. And you go defame Haridas Thakur, and when you're with him, we'll send media with photographers. He said, we'll send the police constables, and we'll get it on video. Something like that. Yes, we'll broadcast it on YouTube. So the prostitute, she said, "Oh, sure. I'm glad to do this service." And she said, "Let me have union with Haridas Thakur once, and then the second time you can come." Because these things are addictive. And so she went, and it's actually described that she appeared like in the evening with the moonlight and she was deliberately dressed very seductively and attractively, and it said that she was showing feminine postures that would bewilder even Lord Brahma and like that. And Haridas Thakur, his vow was to chant at least 300,000 names of Krishna per day. Comes to about 172 rounds per day. So he was in his cave chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And she was, oh Haridas Thakur, you are so attractive and handsome. What woman would not be attracted to have union with you? So she expressed her desire. And Haridas Thakur, he was a bit of a trickster. And so he said, oh yes, I will fulfill your desire. Yes, of course. As soon as I finish my vow about my number of rounds, I need to finish my vow, and then I'll fulfill your desire. So she's waiting there at the cave, and he's chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. And it gets to be midnight, and then the dawn comes, and he's like, what could I do? I didn't finish my vow. So she's like, well, yeah, you didn't fulfill my, he says, yeah, okay, today for sure I'll finish my vow, come back again. So she goes back to report, yeah, well, today's the day. So she comes back, the second day, he goes, yeah, as soon as I finish my vow of chanting 300,000 names, then I'll fulfill your desire. And so the same thing happens. So she comes back the third day, then the third day. So what's happening is this prostitute, she's hearing for hours and hours chanting of Hare Krishna Maha Mantra from the pure devotee Haridas Thakur. And so she's completely purified, she's completely transformed, and she feels disgust, she feels shame. She's like, what am I serving? This Ramachandra Khan, I'm serving this disgusting person. What am I doing? And then she realizes, like, that Haridas Thakur is a divinely inspired, pure devotee of Krishna. And her heart's completely purified, and she just offers prostrate obeisances like that. And she's become a pure devotee by hearing receptively. And then, so the whole thing backfires on Ramachandra Khan, because so then she says, well, Haridas Thakur, I just want to serve you and serve Krishna. I'm disgusted by my previous life. And then so he says, okay, so you just sit here in this cave, I'll go to a different cave, and you just chant Hare Krishna and worship Tulasi and scribe, and she shaves her head. I don't know that he asked her to do that, but that was part of her sign of renunciation. She shaves her head, and she at one point, so she says she gives away all her belongings to the Brahmins. I guess, I don't know, the Brahmins gave it to their wives or whatever they did with the prostitutes, but we can only imagine, So then she gave away all her belongings, and then she was just completely dependent on chanting Hare Krishna. And then what happened was the townspeople, they saw that by the influence, by the association of Srila Haridas Thakur, this very low-grade prostitute became this very pure, clean-hearted, soft-hearted devotee of Krishna. So then their admiration for Haridas Thakur increased even much more. And then Ramachandra Khan, he was so envious. And then the way things played out for him was really not good. But we won't go into that part of the past. So the idea was Haridas Thakur had that higher taste. We don't want to imitate that, because he really had that higher taste. So he had no attraction. He wouldn't even begin with contemplating the objects of the senses and let it get to lust and had attachment, lust like that. He wouldn't even begin with that. But we can understand this principle and see how it's working in our life, and we can reverse it by following the regulative principles of freedom. We contemplate the objects of the senses, right? And then this just furthers. It starts with contemplating, so to nip it in the bud, so to speak. So to resist contemplating things that will just further me in the illusion that I am this body. Ajanasim ho yamahamameti, and I'll be happy by satisfying the senses of this body. And then we develop attachment, and then lust, lust, where I have to have this. I have to. It's no longer I want or I would like. I have to have this. I have to have that respect. I have to have that sex. I have to, whatever it is. And then we're frustrated, we become angry, and then we go further and further into insanity, really. Nunam pramata krute vikarma. Yeah. Pramata, madness. So these principles of bhakti are to give us a higher taste. And the principle of principles is well, it's described by Rupa Goswami. Achihara Prayasascha Nigrama. Nigrama. Yes, that Rupa Goswami, he describes different states of consciousness, different ways of being that are favorable and unfavorable for progressing in Krishna consciousness. And two of them relate to principles. And one is it's unfavorable to blindly accept principles just for the sake of following rules and regulations. Like we're missing the forest because of the trees. Niyamagraha. Prajabo Niyamagraha. It's also unfavorable to reject regular principles that will actually help us advance out of lust and to spiritual desire. Again, transforming the nature of our desire more and more to desire to serve Krishna's mission, desire to do my sadhana, desire to make a substantial difference for Prabhupada's mission. Let me use my life to serve Prabhupada's mission. And that's spiritual desire. There's also spiritual anger. Anger is a terrible master. And it can be a very powerful servant.
Hanuman.
Yeah. Hanuman, servant of Ramachandra. We're coming up to Ram's appearance. So Hanuman, Arjuna, these are examples of anger can be a wonderful servant and it's a terrible master. Okay. And so devotees know how to use anger truly in the service of the Sankirtan mission. So intelligence and sincerity means we know how to accept principles and rules and regulations and commitments that will truly help us to create this upward spiral of spiritual growth. And we're not blindly following rules and regulations that are just a distraction, that are just a distraction. The story, maybe it's a real story or it's a parable. There was a temple in ancient times, and the pujari, he the nectar instruction. Thank you, Shiru. Thank you. Yes. So, yes. So the pujari. I'm not sure if this one's a nectar instruction, but nectar instruction. That's Achihara Prayascha Prajabhunya Magraha Janasangas Charodyam Chasabir Bhakti Pranashyati. These are things that destroy the enthusiasm for devotional service. Things like gossip. Prajalpa means like to just gossip, to indulge in association that will just bring us down and is toxic. To collect too much, to collect too many things. Like too many tape players, or to collect too much food in my belly. This is not because then I need to take that 15-minute nap, and somehow that 15-minute nap often turns into a 3-hour nap. How did that happen? It's because I collected too much food in my belly. So these are not. It's a science. And then qualities that are favorable for devotional service. Utsaha nishcha darya karma pravartata. Sanyutagatsatovi te sadhu bhakti prasidati. Things like enthusiasm, patience, enthusiasm, patient determination, association that's favorable. Yes. Yes. So, to have to be intelligent and sincere, to accept those regulations that'll truly help us, and to understand the purpose, to understand the purpose, and in that way we transform the quality of our desire. Indulging in material desire leads to this madness described in this downward cycle. The idea of eliminating all desire, it's ontologically impossible. And so this is the sublime path of Bhakti Yoga, transforming the quality of desire, so that more and more we're desiring with our thoughts, our actions, our words, our energies, our relationships, the resources that we're borrowing or renting from Krishna, to use them in a way that pleases Supreme Personality of Godhead. How do we know how to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead? We get guidance about that by someone who's expert in it, by the pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada. Jayato Vishyan Pumsa Sangaste Supajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kama Kamat Krodo Vijayate. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them, and from such attachment lust develops, and from lust anger arises. Hare Krishna, thanks for your attention, thanks for your presence, thanks for hearing Bhagavad-gita. Hare Krishna, Jai Srila Prabhupada. I welcome at this time if there are any comments or questions. Hare Krishna. Cyril, yes, Cyril. Hello, Cyril. Cyril is in Montreal. Yeah. Cyril, you want to speak? Or you can unmute yourself, or I can unmute you.
Haribol Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I have one question regarding this verse. So if one has still material desires, but those material desires are becoming less and less gross, more subtle in a way, would it be a sign that one is progressing in a way? So it's still not like desires related to spiritual desires, like related to Krishna, serving fully surrendering to Krishna or serving Srila Prabhupada's mission fully, but you can see that they are less linked, connected to the body, more connected to the mind. What do you think?
Thanks for your question, Cyril. I appreciate that very much. Yeah, my understanding, I mean, what I think is not so important, my understanding from Bhagavad-gita, from Srila Prabhupada is the simple answer is yes, that as our desires become less about the immediate concentrated bodily satisfaction and more maybe related to mind and intellect, then it means probably the consciousness is coming more towards sattva. In the 1990s, I developed what's called the Vedic Personality Inventory. It's a psychometrically tested personality inventory based on the psychology of the three modes of nature described in the Vedas. And so the idea of the way I describe it in my articles is that sattva, according to the Vedas, it's an empirical basis for happiness. It's also the healthiest platform to go towards transcendence. But sattva it's the mode that's closest to the soul. It's closest to transcendence, and so and so as we come towards sattva, then our habits naturally become cleaner, healthier. Even, of course, there's this big health crisis globally, and the pandemic. And if we look at basic principles to protect ourselves, it's basically what's called Brahminical principles.
Take a shower.
Yeah, take a shower 3 times per day. Brahminical principles, cleanliness, and eat moderately, and early to bed, early to rise makes one healthy, wealthy, and wise. That's Benjamin Franklin. And so he was sort of a Boston Brahmin, although most of the time he spent in Philadelphia. But so basically, the Brahminical persons, they're more inclined, to deal with concepts rather than gross sense gratification. They're dealing with ideas and principles, right? And Kshatriya tends to manage people, and Vaishyas people and animals, and Sudras managing things like that. So Brahman, now of course someone could be a Brahmin, and there's a lot of realization, I'm not this body, but down on the subtle platform there could be all sorts of desires to be recognized as the most spiritual person, things like that. But yeah, so Brahmin means I realize I'm Brahman. I'm not matter. I'm Brahman. I'm spirit. And so the more we can go in that direction, then that is progress. That is progress. And so that's why, again, I appreciate your comment and questions here. So part of our process of Bhakti Yoga is to cultivate Brahminical qualities. Samodamastaposhocham chatirarjavamevacha Gyanam Viganamastikam Brahma Karma Swabhavijam, self-control, peacefulness, tolerance, I just want to lose my temper now, I'm going to practice tolerance. Practice means I'm not real good at it, so I'm going to practice. And I'm going to practice cleanliness, practice honesty. This would be a convenient time to lie. And I'm going to practice honesty. Not so good at it, going to practice. So Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate saguna samati yadan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. By being in Krishna consciousness, we automatically have all of the pure sattvic qualities. And at the same time, it can be a trap to think, oh, okay, so I'm a devotee, therefore I have all the sattvic qualities. Certainly for myself, that's far from true. So part of my process of devotional service is to move towards those sattvic qualities. And sattvic qualities, that goes along with being a Brahman realization, realizing I'm not the body. And then we're dealing with more and more subtle weeds in the heart. Thank you, Sir. Thank you. Ramachandra.
In regards to what you shared with cereal, like especially the last part, kind of like touched me, because I've been coming from like externally devotional community, and I witnessed so many of that, like including myself, that I think I'm a Brahman or I think I'm sattvic, and in fact I'm not. And I was wondering, like, what is the practice to hold that mirror and see that you're not? I guess you need to be sincere, but how to do it? Like, is there some like tips to hold the mirror to get this honest feedback about yourself from others?
Yes, yeah. Thanks for that. So, because we in material condition, like, we can have blind spots about ourselves. So that's where, so in Rupa Goswami's 2 lists of 6 items favorable, 6 items unfavorable, right? There's one item that appears on both lists, which is that.
I was waiting for you to ask the question.
Yeah, there's one item that appears on both lists. I'll tell you what it is. It's Sangha.
Oh, okay.
It's association. So he emphasizes that. Jana Sangas Chadlalyam Cha. So it's unfavorable to associate with people who aren't going to be supportive. And Sango Tagat Satoverde, and it's helpful to give up association that's not supportive. And so Satam Prasangam Mamaviri Samvido. So that because we have blind spots, so let's attract and surround ourselves with persons who will who care enough and have the skill and courage and clarity and sattvic realization to share honest feedback, to help us see where, yes, this is really encouraging. Let me continue in this, and here's some self-deception going on, right? You recently experienced a Software Advanced seminar, right? So a lot about it is just like, it's just this container carrying honest feedback about, this is the authentic soul shining, and here's where I see I'm blocking myself. Here's where I see you're self-sabotaging. You think that's a pretty flower. I see that as a weed. And then, of course, it's our responsibility to process that feedback. So to create association, Rupa Goswami again, nectar of instruction, create association, datati patigrinati, guya akiti prichati, bhukte bhujayate chaiva, sadvitam pritilakshanam. Association where we're giving and receiving prashadam, and we have a space to share the mind and heart confidentially. We have a space for giving and receiving honest feedback, not just for the sake of some psychological process, but for the sake of truly cleansing the heart to progress in bhakti.
And when does it become the psychological process?
Was there a comment here?
I also wanted to respond to Ramachandra, but he wanted to say something.
Okay. Yeah.
I was asking, I wanted to kind of go deeper in that line, like when does it turn to a psychological process, like analysis paralysis type of thing, instead of
progressive spiritual life.
Yeah, constructive spiritual feedback.
Lady Nishakti, would you like to share a comment?
Maybe not to the second part of the question, but I just wanted to say that like because you asked about like self feedback at the first place, and so I was thinking like, okay, if I think that I am humble, and I think that I am honest, and I think that I am like renounced, and I have, so like we don't ever hear the pure devotees to think of themselves like this. So most surely it's not authentic, or it will be a weed. So I wanted to share that.
It's a good beginning to assume about oneself.
Yes. And the longer I practice, the more weeds I see, and so it almost feels, and we spoke about it together, so it almost feels like it's getting worse, like instead of like the heart being purified, it's like becoming more and more dirty. That's how it feels. But really it's like the ability to actually see that and not have the blind spots. So I wanted to share that.
Thank you, Ladini. Appreciate that.
Yes. Yeah, if we look in terms of this verse, for example, like, okay, if I'm telling myself, like, let's say I'm I got a lot of anger or emotions in the constellation of anger, resentment, bitterness, hostility, frustration, stressed out. And instead of simply saying, okay, I must have a lot of lust going on, I'm having all these rationalizations about how spiritual my frustration with you is. Okay. Rather than looking at, I have some desire that you're not fulfilling. I have some material desire that you're not fulfilling. That can be a gauge. This verse, it's like, if I know I'm angry a lot, or the constellation of anger, that whole type of emotion, okay, behind it is lust. Of course, there is spiritual anger. And if we're too quick, the general principle is to be vigilant with ourselves and lenient with others. Like that with ourselves to not assume that my qualities must be spiritual, my intolerance must be spiritual, and for others to be compassionate, empathic, and trust that if I were in their shoes, I would, I would have deeper understanding of what's causing their angst, their distress. And then we can look, it's like, okay, if I just had a 6-hour immediacy conversation, if I just had a 6-hour immediate conversation, is it increasing my enthusiasm for devotional service? If I just had a 6-hour interpersonal conversation, okay, is it increasing my enthusiasm to chant rounds? Is it increasing my, or am I just feeling bogged down? If I'm feeling kind of bogged down, okay, then maybe there was just some attempts at weed pulling and this and that, but it lacked the one in front of the zeros. What's my experience? Am I deeper in my inspiration and enthusiasm for bhakti yoga to serve Prabhupada's mission through this feedback, whatever? Yeah, I feel encouraged. For example, like we did this, what's called a Safato advanced seminar, right? And then during the seminar, we had everyone, including many persons who did not know what the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra was, who did not know who Srila Prabhupada was. During the seminar, they're going out on the streets of Gainesville, Florida, doing Harinam Sankirtan. Yeah. And then after the seminar, inspired especially by Leah, also the two of you and others. Yeah, okay. And then after the seminar, everyone came to my home and we engaged in Bhagavad-gita discussion and Kirtan and Prasadam, and many, they practically all left with armfuls of Prabhupada's books, the books of the pure devotee. So we can say, 7 days of psychobabble, this and that. Well, based on results, no. Based on results, this was Uyamakati Prichati. It increased enthusiasm for myself, for the facilitator, staff, participants, for true spiritual life self-realization, Harinam Sankirtan. So, Palena Parichayate, as Jesus said, we can judge a tree by the fruit. Dominique.
Actually, Cyril had a question. Is spiritual anger only manifested in pure devotees?
No. I mean, it's a continuum. It's a continuum. Okay, so we have examples like Hanuman and Arjuna. So these are pure devotees who they do the battle and they get fierce like that. And of course, Srila Prabhupada would sometimes show his Nrsingadev type angry pastimes. Bhakti Siddhanta was known as the Lion Guru. But it's not all or nothing. It's not like this is material and this is spiritual. There's a continuum, and so like yeah. So like if we have a service, Hare Krishna, who's the Bhakta man, Hare Krishna, whoever that is. Glad you're here.
Thank you, Patrick. Hare Krishna.
Patrick. Got it. Hare Krishna. So like if we have a service, and someone is trying to interfere with that service, and that's the sort of offenses we should be concerned about. It's one thing like if we transgress some etiquette out of ignorance or something, or okay, but like if we're trying to interfere with a devotee's service, that's the sort of offense that could be the mad elephant offense. So if we have a service and someone's trying to interfere, then we might use devotional anger. Now, if it's mixed with like, oh, and this interferes with my service, and then people won't see that I'm a great devotee. Okay, then it's material. Then it's material. But we can think of so many examples. So many examples where if we're doing the service and really to protect Prabhupada's mission, to protect the Sankirtan movement, we use anger, firmness, even fierceness, then that's spiritual anger, even if we're not steadily on the platform of Hanuman or Arjuna.
Isn't it also, David, that spiritual anger can be directly towards our lust, our anger?
Yeah.
We can direct, like from where we are at, we can use anger to be a platform for personal advancement. Because even the interference with our service, like, I feel like it can be so easily kind of misused.
Yeah.
And it can lead to like blaming, victimy, like coming from a place where it may not be very useful for our spiritual life.
Yeah.
I found that anger of its place when we can use that energy of anger to look at our anartha in our hearts. Where am I lusty? Where am I contemplating the object of the senses and developing an attachment for it? Or where am I not giving to the process in a way that I could give myself to the process that will be more conducive for my spiritual life? Where I'm accepting the things that are not conducive for my spiritual life. And it seems that anger also would be spiritual.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Yeah, very introspectively directed. Thanks for that, Malini. Yes.
And I had also comments about Cyril's question about desire. We were discussing, we are reading Bhagavad-gita in the morning sometime here too. And we were discussing how the function of the soul is to desire. So desire are going to be there. And how the process of Krishna consciousness as a whole is to transform desire. So it's a process of transformation. And so much of that process of transformation is transformation of desire. So maybe from, like gross desire to more subtle, to more like you were describing earlier, and ultimately to develop more and more spiritual desire. But even there, the spiritual desire don't need to be like something very esoteric. Spiritual desire can be like, I really desire to get up earlier in the morning. Or spiritual desire to transform our desire. I really desire to only eat prashadam. I really desire to chant with attentiveness. And by directing our desire towards our spiritual activity, we already go to the transformation of desire, which is the goal of Krishna consciousness.
Thanks for that. Thanks for those wonderful points, Malini. Thank you. In my early days, pre-Krishna consciousness, I would say maybe I had a Gyata Sukriti. A Gyata Sukriti means doing devotional service without being aware of it. And I to some extent, I used anger in Krishna's service, without knowing it. But I was the chairman in Penn State. This was the early 80s of what's called the Free University. So it was kind of like, it was a student club. I think it would be the Bhakti Yoga Club. And we offered actually like 150 courses every semester. It was a 4-semester system, and we printed a booklet, and it was courses that you wouldn't get university credit for, but the university would give the rooms for it. And somehow I was chairman of that organization. And so we had like 150 courses, and one of them was Stambadas offered a devotee cooking class, vegetarian cooking class, at one of the places on campus where they had a nice kitchen and things like that. And it would be on Tuesday nights. And I remember I would go, and I would always miss the part of the class where you learn how to cook. But I always show up where the cooking's complete and they would serve the feast. I kept trying to get there on time, because it would just somehow never quite work.
Set me for the love feast.
Something like that, exactly. So anyhow, the university was giving Stamba problems like that. And I would have advocated for any of the groups, but I did have a special sentiment because the devotees were feeding me this wonderful food like that. But I would have intervened for any groups. But the administration they actually had some bias, some prejudice. They were doing some things. So, and they wanted to take away their room for this cooking class. Mm-hmm. So I went to the administrator, I went to the vice president of the university, and I was strong, and I intervened on their behalf. Again, I would have done it for any of the groups. But I can imagine Prabhupada and Krishna were pleased with that. And I used some anger. I was like 21, 22 at the time, and like that. And so it was time to use some force to keep the devotees, so that they had their facility on campus for this prasadam distribution and prasadam preparation, like that. There are examples of devotees out on Harinam Sankirtan. Of course, one point is we want to be intelligent where we go on Harinam Sankirtan. But it's many examples of devotees going out on Harinam Sankirtan, and they're physically attacked. And there's examples of some devotees. There's lots of stories where, because the idea is, these devotees and different rough fellows would attack them and think these devotees are going to be easy to beat up, and it turned out to not be the case, because some devotees would use their transcendental anger. Actually, the brother Sharf have some stories about that, which I've heard. Yeah, and so to protect the devotees like that. So I appreciate the conversation. Thanks for your points, Malini. Malini and Cyril are having some French kata.
Magnifique.
Hare Krishna. Haribo.
Hare Krishna. Can I ask my question? No?
Yes, Dominique.
Earlier you said that when people are experiencing anger and frustration, that there's lust underneath.
Yeah.
And I'm not arguing that, but lately I've with like this whole pandemic, I noticed, and I've talking with people who are like more like there's more tension in the home. And there's just more tension in the air, and there's anxieties, and I'm connecting with, like, sometimes I'm acting and feeling controlling and trying to control, or Gaetano is in a completely different way trying to control something around ourselves. We're feeling out of control with the pandemic, and I'm sure that others are feeling that way too. And what I connect with is that there's anxiety driving that controlling behavior, not so much like lust, although maybe it's one and the same. And then when I look at, like, oh, okay, let me experience my anxiety, and when I'm experiencing it, I feel my disconnection to Krishna, and like I'm not experiencing faith, and I'm feeling a lot of distance from God. And I feel like, well, the anxiety I'm feeling, it's not because of the pandemic. It's actually just like something that was already inside of me that now can come to the surface. Anxiety about the situation of living in a temporary world that has disease and danger and death. This is something I know, and I've had a hard time even accepting, my emotion of anxiety, because I think, oh, I want to be conscious. I want to be a servant right now. I want to be a conscious person who's serving, and like I want to identify like that. But I'm like, well, truth be told, like I'm experiencing anxiety, and so I want to be a devotee. I want to serve God, and I want to serve in a higher sense, not just like whatever. So I was wondering, is underneath anger anxiety, or is it always lust?
Oh, I appreciate your comment. Yeah, okay. It's described by Yam Dvitiya Viniveshatasya, the root cause of all fear. Just like we talk about feelings in the constellation of anger, like hostility, resentment, like that. So consultation of feelings around fear, that's anxiety, stress. So the root cause of all fear is misidentification of the self with the body. Okay, so we can connect that with lust. Like, yeah, I want to enjoy my body. I want to live long. I want my children to live long because they are this body. I'm not saying that's your consciousness, Dominique. I'm giving the material consciousness. That yeah, I want this body to be healthy so I can enjoy. You know, so it's connected, the fear and the lust. And so I appreciate very much what you expressed. And so, you know, the recommendation is increase hearing and chanting. And then more and more we're in that transcendental consciousness, and we actually rise above bodily consciousness. And that means rising above anxiety, rising above fear. So in the root cause of fear, so the root cause of anger is this lust, the root cause of fear is misidentification with the body. The body, the concentrated body, and the extended body. My house, my children, what will happen if the economy does this? If this isolation goes on another 3 months, what happens to my body? What happens to my eating, my sleeping? What happens to the byproducts of my body, my children, like that? Okay, and to the extent that we're really taking shelter in kirtan, more and more minutes and hours of the day, we're taking shelter in kirtan, Bhagavad-gita and Bhagavatam, then we experience Vaikuntha, freedom from anxiety. And that's a transcendental fact. Also, for sure, Hare Krishna, for sure, there's transcendental spiritual anxiety. Prabhupada said his greatest anxiety, his greatest fear, is that his disciples are not scared enough of Maya, that his disciples are complacent and overconfident, and that's foolish. Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, he's praying to Krishna, says, "My dear Lord Krishna, anxieties undertaken in your service are the source of my greatest joy, the source of my greatest ecstasy." So we want to transform the relation of, transform the nature of our desire, transform the nature of our anxiety. So, yeah, I know when I'm, you know, all the time, but if I look at the past week, 2 weeks, it was wonderful being in the advanced seminar. I really didn't check any news for 7 straight days, you know, and then I checked the news, you know, like that. And I'm 5 minutes, what to speak of half an hour reading this and that. And for sure, we want to be responsible citizens and keep in touch with things. But when I do so more than minimally, then I feel fear. I feel that anxiety, and it's useless anxiety. And then just like a morning program here or chanting rounds, then I experience Vaikuntha. That's related to the associating with transcendental sound vibration. And we can truly experience Vaikuntha even in this body, even in the midst of this pandemic. Thank you, Dominique. Bhagavad-gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
Haribol, Dominique.